What's happening, YouTube? Anthony on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film with a brand new Lost Galaxy 2014 review. And today we are taking a look at Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series gaming greats, Darth Malgus from Star Wars The Old Republic. Oh boy, Darth fucking Malgus. Before I go ahead and get my inner Star Wars fan on, I do need to address something. When I did my 2014 Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film back in the day in 2013, 2014, I did a Dark Edgelord villain that was akin to Darth Malgus from Star Wars The Old Republic. And basically, when I was doing fan films of Power Rangers with those paper dolls, for those who, if you remember back when I was still doing paper dolls of Power Rangers and was doing fan films with those, my Lord Medirex character was based on Darth Malgus from the Old Republic, because when you think about it, all I did was when I used his facial likeness with that mask on and that overall face, I gave him a darker black face to blacken his face out so it wouldn't look like the Star Wars villain that he's based on. Now, his entire outfit wasn't stolen or anything, just only his facial likeness. And I based basically based Lord Medirex off Darth Malgus. When I did the fan film and when I released it in 2014, now part of me could have wished years later if Lucasfilm and Disney would have sued me for copyright infringement for stealing the overall visual likeness of the character. Years later, they still have yet to sue me for copyright infringement, and I should have came up with a more original design for Lord Medirex and not make him based off a Star Wars villain from a Star Wars game I never played before. I mean, again, I've always been a fan of Darth Malgus. I've always liked his design. I've always liked him as a character, even though I've never played the Old Republic before. Who would have thought 11 years since I did that Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2014 fan film would I ever have an action figure of the actual Star Wars villain that I ripped off from my, Dark Edgelord of a empire that never existed, in my fan film stuff. Back to main topic. Bought this at GameStop for about $36 this month, and this was the only Darth Malgus they had in stock when I went to GameStop. But the figure, however, when you look at the copyright year, the figure came out sometime in 2022 or 2023. So this was a figure that they released, well, not so long ago, a few years earlier, back when I wasn't collecting Star Wars, figures, especially for the collector's line with Star Wars Black by Hasbro. So let's go over the figure. So here's what the front of the package looks like. I know it's a little dinged up because it was been fumbled and shuffled with all these other different figures that it was stocked with, and you can feel some tears and some beat up edges and stuff on the box, but as long as the figure still looks just fine. And this is still back in the time when Hasbro, like I was saying, when it comes to their collector grade Marvel Legends and stuff figures, this is when they started doing plastic free packaged boxes for a lot of their stuff. G.I. Joe Classified, Ghostbusters, Fortnite, Transformers Studio Series, Marvel Legends, and Star Wars. And yes, Power Rangers with the Lightning Collection, because the way how they was going with this plastic free packaging for the Star Wars stuff, it was kind of frustrating for 2022 and 2023 Star Wars collectors. So here's the front of the package, featuring a render of Darth Malgus from the game, and then another render on the side of him in black and white. And then here's the full-on back render of him from the game, showing his entire body. And then here's his backstory. A legendary Sith Lord, Darth Malgus, emerges from hiding with a mysterious pain that could secure his legacy in the annals of the Sith. So that's pretty much his backstory. So let's unbox and take a look at Malgus. And no, this is not Lord Medirex from that 2014 Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's unbox him. Well, Malgus doesn't have that many accessories going for him. The only accessory is his cloak and his lightsaber. We'll go over all of that as we go through the review, since this is going to be very quick. So he has no other accessories, like no interchangeable hands or anything, so what a relief there. Yeah, but here is what his lightsaber looks like. Let's put his figure in the back so I can showcase. His lightsaber is pretty damn cool. I really like the shade of red on him, and look at all that translucence and metallic red finish for the blade of his lightsaber, because the Sith Lords in Star Wars always had red lightsabers because the dark side and all. And I do like the way how the tip of his lightsaber is. That's pretty awesome. Now we need to take a look at Malgus, Darth Malgus. Stop mentioning that villain. That's a crappy ripoff of that for a Power Rangers fan film. I know not a lot of people care about PRLG2014 anymore, so let me shut up. Malgus's look, who I ripped off for that villain for that fan film, they really captured his likeness very well with that faded skin tone, like he's dying. And then he has that mask, and, you know, technically, it suits his character. I also noticed when I took him out of the plastic, you can see somewhat his face if you can take the mask off, revealing his face, if possible, because I was trying to take the mouthpiece off, showing it off like he had some burned scars and stuff. And you can see Malgus without his mouthpiece covering, you know, the mask, and you can see that because that is very gruesome and brutal. That they put, you know, a lot of realistic detail to that scarring and the pain he has to conceal from whatever his scars and pains is, because again, I never played Old Republic. While I may have stole the overall facial likeness because I just like that, you know, the mask and the overall look of him and putting the hood around him, it makes him look very like one of the most deadliest and ruthless Sith Lords outside of Darth Vader, Darth Maul, and Kylo Ren. So here's Malgus with the, you know, the hood over his head. So this is how he would look with the hood on. So there you go. Well, I may have not ripped off the entire outfit design for him for my Lord Medirex character for my 2014 Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film. But again, what does Power Rangers have anything to do with Star Wars? You know, on a Power Rangers YouTube channel like mine, I am covering other action figures of other franchises because, you know, you would think that after 12 years of reviewing action figures, when I'm not doing fan film, what do you expect? If only they had a Darth Malgus action figure like this back when I was doing that 2014 fan film, yeah, but there was no way back then. And especially in highly detailed authenticity like this. There was no way back in 2014. That's why I did paper dolls. So when we go over his overall suit design, it's very much like in the games and with the black and silver color scheme. They really did a good job doing his, you know, suit for the thing and the cloak, and his cloak and, you know, hood is cloth fabric, so they had to put that in realistic detail and not give him a rubber one because it would be unrealistic, looking like a kid's toy. All of the amount of armor and detail onto him, so that's that's great. Very reminiscent. It also does remind me of Darth Vader. Wait until when I get Darth Vader and his figure. I do have that figure, which I've showed off on social media if you haven't kept up. Let's take a look at articulation. Before I do any further arm movement, you should note that his shoulder pads are plastic, so there's going to be some restricted arm. No, I think you can do some arm, but although when you raise them arms up, both arms, the shoulder pads are going to move a little bit, so keep them down a little. Take the hood off. So for head movement, you're not going to do much head movement because due to the cloak and, you know, the cape still on, the figure, so you're not going to do further head moving. So you can just move his head left and right, up and down, and tilt that, but you're not going to, turn his head all the way, so that's not going to be possible. Butterfly joints. Some butterfly joints you can do, but due to, again, this part of the chest armor, you're not going to be able to get much moving of the arms around. Elbow crunch. Well, you can probably do an elbow crunch on this arm, but I have a hard time getting an elbow crunch on this arm because this arm feels like it just want to stay. I don't want to break Malgus's arm, so that's not. Well, unfortunately, just leave his arm like that, unfortunately, but you can just do some articulation on this arm, and that's about it. And then put it back in static mode and just leave it like that. Abdomen crunch. Abdomen crunch is a bit limited, so unfortunately you're not going to be able to do much crunching the abdomen this time around because due to the mass amount of armor on him, so you're not going to do that. But you can get some good leg movement on Malgus, spread the arms around, and you can also turn his lower legs around, so that's something. What about the knee crunch? Knee crunch is just like this because this is also one of my first few Star Wars black figures from Hasbro that are pinless jointed, so I don't have to deal with those pin joints for future figures, but this is one of the first Star Wars black figures I have in my Star Wars collection right now, where pinless jointed, because this is still back when Hasbro was starting to experiment doing pinless jointed action figures. How his leg, you know, his knee crunches are. So here's also knee crunch on this leg too, so you're not going to really do much. Ankle pivots are good, but yeah, given the heaviness on the whole overall body with the arms and legs. And turn those legs around again, ankle pivot on this leg, there you go. And then let's put the lightsaber back in, and he's ready to take down some Jedi, you know, that type of thing, like all Sith Lords in Star Wars. That's real cool. Now, Darth Malgus' figure, well, as much as I've always hotly anticipated having a Darth Malgus in my Star Wars collection, because again, I've always talked about Malgus, I've talked about how I ripped him off for a Power Rangers fan film. Now, if I want to do a proper Star Wars Power Rangers crossover, I should have waited until Hasbro did a more collector-grade Darth Malgus figure, and since I do have the Lost Galaxy Rangers and the Power Rangers Lightning collection, this will probably be a, you know, basically Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2014 calling a do-over, but with a proper Star Wars character and not just do a crappy rip-off of that Star Wars character. So there you go. So there you go, folks. That's my review on Darth Malgus, and it's a good figure, but although I'm just kind of disappointed on some articulation points, and but I do like the overall presentation of the figure, but it's, you know, I just do have a hard time trying to get that right arm to articulate so I can do an elbow crunch, but it's just going to stay stiff and stuck. Like if it was a basic figure that had little to no articulation to it. And I guess that's just how it looks. So, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time.